On this episode, Jake Blast has some questions about hoarding and manipulating items. You ask merchant questions and I'll answer them. Hi guys, this is Divine from Merch.com with episode 3 of the Ask Merchant Questions show. There was no BTS post this week, but I still have some content for you all. Just a quick note before getting into it, we recently opened a Discord server as a test alongside our on-site chat box. So far there's about 18 people in without really advertising it anywhere, so perhaps it can grow from here. Feel free to join for some merchanting talk if you're into that, and you can find the link in the video description below. On to the question then. Yesterday I received a PM from Jake Blast about an item he's been hoarding and what to do with it. He gave me permission to make a video about the answer, and I'll be hiding his specific item to not mess with his investment. But it's really about the principle here. Now Jake has been hoarding these rare tokens which were released from an event, and they have a limit of 2 per 4 hours, and so far he's managed to stock up 1500 of them using multiple accounts. Now Jake doesn't understand who is buying these as they're essentially useless, and he suspects that others are hoarding them alongside with him. Now a really easy way to check that is to frequently price check throughout the day and see if the prices are always the same or if someone is using some kind of signature for the last few digits. Anyways, his goal was to hoard most of this item, drive up the Grand Exchange price and slowly sell off the stock. Now he's wondering if this is possible at all because he hasn't really noticed much change in the trade volume over the past while. Now, I wrote him an essay in response, so I thought I'd take out 5 key points for you all instead of going through the entire thing. Number 1 is that it's about the execution and not the idea, because you're almost never the only person to think of an idea. As mentioned in the endgame merchanting video, more and more merchants are starting these side projects to feed their main investments. And also because they're not really getting the same returns from merchanting as they used to, and they're increasingly looking into alternatives. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to how well you do versus the other people getting involved. Number 2 is that you have to think twice about where you put your money. In this case, Jake Blast is putting his money into an essentially useless and undesirable item and at the whim of other investors. Now he didn't really tell me how much of his total wealth he put into this, but you can really only invest in something like this with money that you can absolutely miss. If you want to take the hoard anywhere in the future, it'll likely require many times what you initially put in and thought was enough, so be prepared for that. Number 3 is to always run the math on long-term scenarios, and I know for a fact that almost nobody does this, but I'm serious about it. You have to do this if you're going to undertake a long-term project. So make a spreadsheet with a matrix in it and figure out how much profit you can make if the hoard takes 1 month, 2 years, or anything in between. And if you forecast to make a certain amount of millions per day on average, does that outweigh flipping with the exact same money? And the answer will usually be no. Now you'll need to make many scenarios, and if your worst case scenario is very bad, you may not want to do it. Like in very many cases, hoards simply aren't worth doing. I've always said this. Number 4 is to choose an exit strategy. You only have 2 options. You either go all in and you try to sell to a collector like Snow did, with his 13,000 10 Cavaliers, or you have to sell off slowly for possibly break even in the end. You can't do both at the same time because no collector or merchant will take you seriously if they can easily buy stock at low prices. They'll simply run to the Grand Exchange, price check the item you claim to have the entire stock of, and find out that it's super cheap and super accessible, and they just won't trade with you. So don't do both at the same time. Number 5 is to remember the buy limit. If you try to dump a low limit item in the Grand Exchange, you have to remember that people can't buy a whole lot at the same time. So if you are selling an item with a limit of 2 per 4 hours and you just put in 50 of them, remember that there need to be 25 offers to buy that up. So chances are you won't be able to offload that much without substantially crashing the price. It's really easy to try and do that, to sell a lot at once, but you may find out that the next buy offers are like 10 to 50% lower than what you were trying to sell. And that's to be expected. Now it's really important to not leave your sell offer in lower than the buy prices that you sold to, because if that happens and these people start to get their cash back from the offers that they had in, then they will drop those offers substantially or start selling to and cause a chain reaction which will instantly evaporate your entire investment. That's really not something you want to do. Now, in all honesty, there's no clean way to do this if your item is essentially junk. Sadly, there's not always an answer to every situation, so I personally don't advise these kind of investments to anyone. With that said, good luck to Jake Blast. He said he's planning to sell, so I hope to hear from him how that works out later on. If you have any merchanting questions, feel free to post them below or send me a PM on merch. Take care everyone, you keep asking questions and I'll answer them.